everyone, this is OCD Live. I'm Ali Grayman. We're going to be answering some questions about OCD. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. If you have a question that you would like me to answer on the next show, please leave it below any of the videos and let's get started. So the first question I have is, you say that I'm worrying about the thoughts because I'm not a bad person. But then if I stop worrying about these thoughts and stop doing compulsion, then that means that I am a bad person or a grave sinner who needs to be punished, and the punishments that I deserve will accumulate and make me feel even more guilty and not allow me to do anything that I enjoy, isn't it? Please help, Ali. So when you are choosing not to pay attention to the thoughts, not to worry about the thoughts, this is because nobody else would worry about them either. The reason why you're worrying about it is because you have OCD. It's not because there's an actual reason to worry. So your brain is mimicking a real situation, but it's mimicking it. It's not actually real situation. But if you are responding to a fake situation as if it is real, you are creating a state of panic in your mind. And when you create a state of panic in your mind, you are guaranteeing yourself that you're going to have more of these thoughts on this particular topic or a similar topic, because the mind starts to think that this is somehow important to you. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're tricking your mind into thinking that you are a bad person when you're really not. So by stopping yourself from worrying, it doesn't make you a bad person, because when you're worrying about this, you're worrying about something that's not real. So by stopping to worry about something that's not real, you are doing a good thing. But this kind of thinking and this kind of train of thought that like you're writing there, this is typical OCD thinking. Well, if I don't worry, does this make me a bad person? No, it doesn't. If you don't worry, you become like everybody else who doesn't have OCD, because nobody else would worry about this. You know? So it's not buying into the fear, not buying into what OCD is trying to tell you, because none of it is real. It's all false. But the more you react, the more real it will feel, because OCD always feels real. It always feels like, you're being bad or whatever, or the situation is real, but it's not true, So by refusing to pay attention, but you refusing to worry, you show your mind that it's not true, and then your mind will stop sending you these thoughts. So the next question I have is, hi Ali, I think I'm suffering with the false memory OCD. I keep getting these images in my head that seem very real and seem like they happened. I spoke to the person that this situation involves and they told me, no, nothing happened, but I'm getting the thought that they're lying. What do I do? And again, what you did is you got the thought, you didn't went and did reassurance by asking the person, and now you feel worse. This is the typical pattern of how it goes with OCD. You can't seek reassurance, because when you seek reassurance, you're basically saying to your mind that you're scared, you're in panic, the situation is important, it's real, and it's scary to you. That's the message that you're sending to your mind. Your mind has no, like that part of the mind, it's like traffic control. It has no idea what the thought is about. It's looking to you to tell it what the thought is about, but it doesn't understand it on a conscious level. It understands it on a signal level, that if you're taking it seriously and if you're seeking reassurance as if it's real, right, like you're protecting yourself as if it's real, it's gonna send you more thoughts. So that's why reassurance only works for a short period of time. So you get reassurance, you feel better for a second, but then you think, well, maybe they're lying. Well, maybe so the trick is not to play the game, because you cannot win in the game by playing it. You cannot get enough reassurance, even if depending on some thoughts are just like easier to get reassurance on just by the nature of it. So if you do get one of those thoughts that is easy kind of to debunk, so to speak, it will just give you a new thought. So you can't win this way. So it's choosing not to play the game. You've already done reassurance. So from now on, not paying attention to it. It's telling you that they're lying, fine. It's telling you something else, fine. It can tell you whatever it wants to, but you're not going to react. You're not going to listen to what it's telling you, and you're not going to take it seriously. So yeah, my brain is telling me something. Who cares? So what? Not going to pay attention, going to move on, and you will still have anxiety when you make this choice. right? The anxiety will not just magically go away right away. It will take a little bit of time for your brain to adjust. But if your brain sees that you're actively not paying attention, it will adjust quickly. Like quickly, I mean like depending on how long the thought has already been there. But a few days to a few weeks, if your thought has been there for a few days, it'll take a few days to go away. If the thought has been there for a few weeks, it'll take maybe a week to go away. If the thought has been there for a month or two, it will take maybe, again, a few weeks to a month to go away. That's kind of what I usually see with my clients. But it will happen. But you have to be strong and just saying, it's false memory OCD. I'm not paying attention. I'm moving on. Just being very, very strong with it and continuously doing this throughout the day. Because throughout the day, you're going to get thoughts over and over again, kind of repeating in your mind, coming back to you, trying to scare you, right? So it's continuously saying that I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done with it. So the next question that I have is, hi Ali, can you please discuss OCD in women? Through personal experience, I feel OCD gets bad due to PMS. I guess due to hormonal changes, a level of anxiety gets affected. I am sure a lot of women must be experiencing the same, but with OCD, which feeds on anxiety, the effect amplifies. It would be good to see a video on this. Thank you. I will do a separate video on it, but basically, PMS does make OCD worse. So during your monthly cycle, you can't expect OCD to flare up. If you're already having, say for example, you have a 7 out of 10 OCD, during that time it might go to 8. But again, it can just create more symptoms, more thoughts. It doesn't mean that you have to react to those thoughts, because it's all about your reaction. If it gives you more thoughts during that time and you refuse to react, then those thoughts will go away. It's still all about your reaction at the end. So the more you react, the more painful it will become. Like honestly, the trick is just not to react. Whatever thought you get, if it has to do with your theme, and you know what the theme is, right? For you specifically, right? So you know what your theme is, you know what your triggers are, and you know how OCD feels, what an OCD anxiety feels like. So seeing all of that and just refusing to react. So next question is, hi Ali, can avoidance in OCD be a compulsion? And yes, avoidance is and reassurance are kind of the same thing. If you're doing something specifically for OCD, it is really a compulsion. If you're doing it on repeat. So it's because you're showing the problem with compulsions is you're showing your mind that you are scared. So you're sending your mind the signal that it's important to protect yourself in this situation, whatever it is, a false memory, a fear of the future, like any kind of like OCD, right? You're showing that you're scared, and your mind is sending you more thoughts on the topic that you're showing that you're scared about. It could be anything under the sun. But if you are getting triggered by it and, protecting yourself and doing reassurance in a way of, after doing the reassurance versus avoiding the situations in the first place, so avoiding anything that has to do with the situation in the first place, in either one of those situations, you are triggering more OCD in the future. So you're taking a step back in your recovery. So it's just not doing that. No avoidance, no reassurance. If you're doing physical compulsions, then no physical compulsions as well. So just refusing all of those things, and that's the trick to recovery. That if you're avoiding, stop avoiding. If you're doing reassurance, stop reassurance. If you're doing compulsions, stop the compulsions to the best of your ability, and try to improve on it every single day. Really every moment of every day, because it does hit you every moment to try to figure it out, to try to do this, to try to do that. So just refusing to play the game. So next question I have is, do the same rules apply while being intoxicated and not necessarily remembering much? In terms of false memory OCD, the person's asking. So I find that alcohol is generally a huge trigger for people who have OCD. So especially with false memory, because it's kind of like your brain can use it as like a loophole, so to speak, right? Where it can tell you, well, you were a little bit intoxicated, or a lot intoxicated, depending on the situation, you don't remember. Maybe it's not a false memory, right? That's kind of what the brain tells you. But again, in all my practice of doing this, I've never seen a person actually do anything wrong for real. But alcohol will trigger OCD. So I would say, this is, we just talked about avoidance. In this case, I would avoid alcohol. Also, if you're on medication, you shouldn't be drinking anyways, right? So there's that. I would say really there's no need for it. So avoiding it would probably be okay. However, if you are in a situation where, say, like, you're at a social gathering, not like at a club or something like that, but say your job requires you to be at parties, and if you have a glass of wine or a few sips of wine, that's a little bit different, right? Because you're avoiding, in that case, if you're avoiding instead of avoiding for a good cause, such as like the recovery, you're now avoiding out of fear. So again, you're sending the message of fear to your mind, and you don't want to do that. That I'm so scared I'm going to get into an OCD situation that I'm not going to drink. Do you know what I mean? That sends a message of fear. So you have to make sure always that you're coming from a position of power, that you are choosing not to drink because you're choosing not to drink. And a few sips of wine, for example, is not going to cause you to forget some sort of important thing, right? So being realistic about it. But I would say that if you are going to be drinking, really prepare yourself to have an exposure, because you are gonna have a thought afterwards, especially if you have false memory OCD, because that's what I always see is false memory OCD gets triggered by alcohol. But at the same time, as an exposure, it is not a bad thing. So it's kind of a fine line. But again, if you're on medication, you shouldn't be drinking. So the next question I have is, hi Ali, I know reading stuff online is bad, but a person on an OCD forum asked if OCD is a lifelong illness, and every reply said yes, it is. Is that true? Because I know you have said that full recovery is possible and the unwanted thoughts can be completely gone. Also, another person commented, is OCD classified as a mental illness? So, okay, so answering these two questions. Yes, full recovery is possible with OCD. If basically everything I said, even in today's show, right? This is what you need to do. No reassurance, no avoidance, no compulsions. And really coming from a position of power every time, even if you're faking it, just saying, I'm not buying into this, I'm done playing this game, I'm not gonna reassure my mind anymore. Because you can't, it's like you're trying to reassure a traffic light, you know? It doesn't understand what you're trying to say, because that part of the mind, its job is not to understand thoughts on an emotional level. It's like a trigger, it's a traffic control. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't get it. So you can't argue your way out of it or reason your way out of it, because you're saying it to a part of the mind that doesn't understand it. You can only affect that part of the mind by your actions. And your actions meaning that you're coming from a position of power and you're showing it that you're not afraid. You know? That's what's going to get you out of it. If you do this, your recovery is pretty much guaranteed. If you don't do this, you won't recover. It's with OCD, the one good thing about it is it's really simple in its operation. It seems very complicated in the way people get thoughts and all of this, but it's actually very simple. It's either you're reacting and your mind will send you more thoughts, or you're not reacting and your mind will drop to stop it, because your mind is not going to hang on to something that's irrelevant. So as long as you keep making it scary to yourself and making it relevant, it's going to keep sending you the thoughts. As soon as you stop, it will start to drop it little by little, because it still wants you to make sure that you're safe, so it doesn't just drop it all at once. And that's why people say, well, I'm doing the right things, but I still have anxiety. And there's a physical component to it, that it takes a little bit of time, but it starts to drop little by little right from that moment when you refuse to give it fear. So the fear comes to you, right? That, oh my God, what if something, something, right? But you're not responding with fear saying, oh my God, yes, let me think about it, let me get reassurance, let me avoid all of this stuff. So you're not responding, you're not sending back the signal of fear. And if your mind is not receiving that signal of fear back, it understands it to mean that the thought is no longer relevant to you, and it drops the thought. And then again, if you are worrying, well, what if I always have the doubt and all of that, as it drops the thought, you will no longer have all of the emotions clouding your judgment. You will be able to see it logically like everybody else sees it. Because I'm sure, like, if you've gotten reassurance before, everybody else is like, I would never worry about this. This is silly. Can't you see that it's silly? And you can't see it because you are clouded by all of the emotions, and they're not. They're looking at it from a logical perspective. So you'll be able to see it exactly how they see it, but it takes time, because to do that, to be able to see it that way, uh, your feelings have to kind of go away when it comes to these thoughts, you know? So your job is just not to react. All of this other stuff will come by itself. But your job is just not to react, not to give it fear, not to give it any power. You need to be coming from a position of power. If you do this, you will recover 100%. Your mind is set up in a way that it doesn't keep irrelevant thoughts. If I ask you, what did you eat 2 years ago for breakfast? It won't give me that. You won't be able to give me that answer because it doesn't hang on to irrelevant information. You know. But if I ask you something more relevant, right? When is your birthday? You hang on to that information, right? Because that's irrelevant information, right? So if you show your mind that the information is irrelevant, it will go away. And once it goes away, you will be able to see that you were right to do that, and that information was truly irrelevant, that it wasn't important, because you'll be able to logically see it at that point. So that's the whole trick to doing it. But it is a difficult journey. You have to do the work. That's, when people ask me, people email me, ask me for sessions and to do the recovery program, I always tell them the same thing. You have to be prepared to do the work, because if you're not prepared to do the work, you're not going to recover. We can do sessions and we can talk about the situation, and I can support you all of this way, but it's what you're doing between the session that matters. What you're doing every moment of every day is what matters. Yes, you'll have help, but it's what you're doing. It's You can recover 100%, but you need to do the work. So I hope this kind of helps clear it up. And in terms of is it a mental illness? Yes, it is a mental illness. But again, it's the type of mental illness where you can recover from it, which I don't know, like comparing it to, say, something like schizophrenia, I don't know if you can really recover from that. But with this, you can definitely recover. So next question I have is, hi Ali, my only fear or what if concern is about getting more bad thoughts, and then I may keep getting them, and that the thoughts are so wrong. So basically, the person says, it's like, if I don't do a compulsion avoidance, I'll be doomed, punished with more thoughts. And since the thoughts are there, my mind sends me more thoughts when I don't do a compulsion or something. And the cycle keeps going. So I don't feel I have a chance of recovery. What do I do? Please help. So again, it's, if you are doing the compulsions, you are guaranteeing yourself more thoughts. If you are refusing to do the compulsions, or avoidance or reassurance or whatever, right? If you're refusing to do all of that, at first you will get more thoughts still, but for a different reason now. You get more thoughts because your mind is trying to send you more thoughts in order to get you back into reacting, right? But that is just at first. After a little bit of time, it will see that you're still staying strong, you're still not reacting, and it will stop. Unlike in the first situation, if you keep doing compulsions and doing the avoidance, you'll have it forever. So it's just basically making a choice, and nobody can make this choice for you. It's either you refuse, you still will suffer for a little bit, but then you will start to feel a lot better. Or you just keep doing compulsions for years and years to come. So next question I have is, which one of these do you agree with? Do you believe that a person with OCD is born with it and has it from the word go? People aren't born with OCD, but some people are just more prone to developing it at some point in their life. Or can anyone with any background develop OCD? So which one of those is correct? I do think that um, some people are born more sensitive, and that sets them up to be more in a more of a position to get OCD. And those people who are in that way, where they are more sensitive, they're born that way, if they get OCD, they pretty much get it from a young age. So not from the word go, but from a very young age. And I do think that people are predetermined to kind of have it if they are already very, very sensitive. And again, it's, the reason why I'm doing this channel is because really, if you have a child that is that way, and you can see that the child is more sensitive, he's starting or she's starting to do kind of compulsive actions that don't really make sense, explaining to them at a very young age in a way that they can understand that, listen, you don't have to listen to everything that come, like all the thoughts that are coming into your mind. Some thoughts are not real thoughts. You don't have to listen to them. They will not develop a full-blown OCD later on because they'll know how to handle the thoughts. Because the reason why people have OCD, the way they develop it, is they first get a thought, the thought scares them, they react with fear, and they start that snowball effect of having the feared reaction. So the brain sends more thoughts, they have feared reaction to those thoughts, then the brain sends more thoughts, and it becomes a giant snowball that just keeps growing and growing and growing. If the person is already prepped for, if you get a thought, if it doesn't make sense, if nobody else would worry about it, you should not worry about it. Don't take it seriously. If they have that preparation, then they will know how to react. And I think that it will stop them from getting full OCD, you know? So it will be just a very high anxiety, but it, again, if they refuse to react, that the anxiety will go down, right? So, but I do think that, generally people who have OCD are very nice, very sensitive people, very in tune with their emotions, more so than the general population. And I can tell you that, for sure, because I see so many people, and pretty much every client I've ever had falls into that category, or everybody I've talked to about OCD falls in that category. So the next question I have is, my OCD is currently 4 out of 10 as I am doing all the right things most of the time. I do get setbacks after 4 to 5 days, but I'm able to recover from them faster than earlier. Along with doing ERP, I'm also taking a very small of SSRI medicine at night, which is 3 hours before sleep. I want to ask you about the excessive dreams which I get during sleep. The content of the dreams keeps on changing, but there's a complete story which goes in my head during sleep. I do get good amount of sleep, however, I'm not sure if my mind is always on the run during sleep, even when during the day it is much more relaxed and calm than it was a few months back. Do you come across patients who had the same kind of problem as mine? How are the dreams related to OCD, and what else can I do in order to reduce my dreams? So, yeah, I do see when I was recovering from OCD, as well as when my clients are recovering, that a lot of the times, especially if you are not paying attention to it during the day and really working on your recovery, your mind is still on the lookout for these situations. So it comes out in the dreams. It will pass on its own. What you're doing right now is great in terms of recovery, right? So as you continue to do this, you don't have to do anything else. Just continue doing what you're doing already, and all of this stuff with the dreams will sort itself out. It is very normal. It's just kind of your mind is unable to act out during the day because you are not allowing it to. So during the night, it kind of sends you the warning signs because it is always on the lookout. It won't last forever. This is just a period of time. As long as you keep going strong and doing the right thing most of the time, this shouldn't last for more than maybe a few weeks. It's hard for me to give a specific time estimate because I don't know the situation and how long you had OCD, but it shouldn't last too long. Just keep doing strong with the recovery. Also about the SSRIs, I don't think it really matters if you're taking it at night, and I don't think it has anything to do with the dreams. As you are further into the recovery, you will feel like you don't need them. When you feel like you don't need them, you can stop taking them. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but it's, it will be very clear to you that it's not necessary anymore. So, but I don't think the SSRIs have anything to do with the dreams. Next question I have, hi Alia, I often worry that I can't find people who have the exact same kind of thoughts. Then what if I am experiencing is not OCD? I will Google my theme and become discouraged if I can't find anyone experiencing the same thing on an OCD forum. Or I will listen to your podcast and worry when my theme doesn't quite fit with the ones you are covering. Your thoughts on this matter would be greatly appreciated. So, okay, what you're doing is a form of reassurance and really a compulsion, right? With the check, because you're checking. Basically, you're trying to reassure yourself that you are safe by checking and making sure that this is really OCD. Now, this is extremely common compulsion. I mean, I see it all the time, right? So it's just not doing that anymore, because the more you do it, the more anxious you will get. I can guarantee you that your thoughts are OCD thoughts, because I've never had a client or just a person I'm talking to about OCD thinking that it's an OCD thought and or worrying what if it's not an OCD thought and it turns out not to be OCD. It always is OCD. So if it doesn't quite fit, it doesn't mean that it's not OCD. It just means that, you just haven't found that one specific case. So right now, you need to stop yourself from doing all of this reassurance. So no more looking at forms, no more checking, no more trying to analyze. So using it as an exposure, that thought of what if it's not OCD, that's your exposure. With PRO, the thoughts themselves are exposures. Okay? So the thought is an exposure. Now you need to do the response prevention. So saying, okay, I'm not going to dig into it. I'm not going to try to figure out if this thought is OCD or not. I'm just going to take it as OCD. I'm going to move on and I'm going to refuse to give it the reaction of fear. So that's what you need to do to get away from this. So the next question I have is, how long does it usually take for the whole cycle of feeling good for a while and then having small setbacks for a little to go away? It's constant cycle, and I have to keep telling myself that I would know without a doubt if my thoughts for sure happen. It's also very scary with the what ifs and what if it came true in the future and I have no recollection of anything. My OCD tends to get worse when my anxiety is way up. So as long as you are forcing yourself to not react with fear most of the time, it's going to go away. Now, in terms of time, how long it's going to take to go away, it really depends on how long you've had this thought in the first place. So if you had the thought for only about a week, right, it will take just a few days to go away. If you had this thought for a few months, it will take about maybe a month to go away. If you had this thought for a few years, it will take a few months to go away. That's kind of what I see on average with my clients. Um, it really depends though how clean your recovery is, okay? Because if you are not reacting, choosing not to react 80-90% of the time, you're going to recover a lot faster than you're doing it 70% of the time or 60% of the time. So what I'm saying, just like the kind of the time that I gave just now, that's if you're doing it at 80 or 90%. Okay? If you're doing it at 50 or 60%, it's going to take a lot longer. So it's just about doing the work, just continuing to do the work no matter what. So this is the end of part one. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you in part two, because I know I missed last week and we do have to answer all those other questions as well. So if your question wasn't answered in this portion, it will be answered in the next one. As always, please check out youhaveocd.com. There's a lot more information on there. There's a private recovery program with me. There's ebooks, there's articles, there's lots of information to help you recover. So please check that out. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in part two.